Nashville Public Radio serves Middle Tennessee in many ways every day, including through this podcast. You can support it by leaving a review or rating, by telling a friend about it, or by contributing at WPLN.org/give.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's June 16th, 2025. And this date's a big one for local news in this part of Tennessee. Rutherford County's first ever newspaper published its first issue on this day in 1814. And in 1876, this was also the first publishing day for the original Nashville Banner, a newspaper that would become one of the dominant news sources in the city through much of the 20th century. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. For many years, Nashville had two newspapers. The Tennessean came out every morning, the Nashville Banner in the afternoons. They pushed each other to see who would get the scoop, who could break the big stories or snag the interviews that everyone would talk about. There were times when they had pointedly different editorial philosophies, when the Banner was owned by conservatives and the Tennessee was a liberal voice. But mostly, they were each a source of healthy competition for the other. That was even after a conglomerate, Gannett, came to town to own the Banner, and it was true after Gannett sold the Banner back into local ownership and bought the Tennessean instead. The competition continued to be a driving force even as the two papers entered a resource-sharing agreement that put all of their offices in one building and had them using the same printing press. And no matter which paper you subscribed to, if you lived in Middle Tennessee in that era, that competition helped ensure that you really would find out what was going on, that you would have a chance to get a deep understanding of your community, and that someone would always be out there questioning the powers that be and holding them accountable. But eventually, the money just didn't work out anymore. The Nashville Banner newspaper shut down in 1998. I was a baby radio host back then, still in my first year of working for WPLN. I just moved up from 20 hours a week doing the evening music shift on the air to adding another 10 hours to my part-time schedule, compiling the community events calendar. And that meant I finally got a desk and a reason to come into the office for a little while before everyone else went home for the day, which means that I heard the conversations among people here in our tiny little newsroom at the time, reacting to the announcement that the Banner was no more. I wouldn't say anyone was shocked. It hadn't been a secret that the circulation numbers were bad. Afternoon papers had become a dying breed. But my sense from the people who really knew the news landscape in town and understood the dynamics, folks like Anita Bugg, Rebecca Bain, Terry Fields, was that this was cause for deep worry. I also think it fired up Anita in particular to really level up what we were doing at WPLN. But we were so small at the time that no matter what we did, it couldn't come anywhere near to taking the place that the Banner held, of being that scrappy bunch of born reporters whose work made all of the journalism in town better for the whole community. That was a long time ago, closer to 30 years than I'd like to admit. And we are that player now. WPLN News has grown to have a deep enough bench of reporters that we can break stories, uncover injustices, do deep investigations while keeping the wheels of daily news coverage turning at a strong clip. And we are able to do our part to maintain a healthy level of competition with our colleagues around town so that all of us as a broader press corps are asking the questions, shining the light on the decision makers and the power brokers, and giving you a glimpse behind closed doors. And we're not alone. Now, more than ever, public radio stations across the country are stepping up to play a strong role in local journalism. Not every station can, but as a system, we've been bolstering each other, sharing tips and tricks and lessons learned, getting trained from the folks at National Public Radio, learning to hone our craft, strategizing together for how to navigate the shift to digital platforms. And increasingly, we're sharing stories with each other so you, in our audience, can also learn about and from other communities in similar situations to our own. But the lesson of the original Nashville Banner's demise back in the 90s is that the money has to be there. No newsroom can run on moxie alone. You got to be able to pay the bills. And that's why the actions taking place right now in Congress threaten WPLN and so many other local public broadcasters around the United States. If you read the statements from legislators like Tennessee's own Senator Marsha Blackburn, they talk about rolling back money specifically for NPR and PBS. But local stations, like the one that produces this podcast, are deeply intertwined with our national partners. We obtain a significant amount of programming from them, yes, but we've also received invaluable support from NPR through the years. And that's a big part of how we've been able to become the kind of radio station that isn't just a local frequency for national shows. It's an integral part of the story behind how we grew from a tiny newsroom to a substantial one. It's how we've been able to become Nashville's voice to the entire public radio audience nationwide. It's also how we became the kind of organization that can produce, support, and distribute digital programming like this podcast and the award-winning investigations by Miriam Knight and Paige Flager, Justin Barney's coverage of the people who make Nashville's music industry work, Julie Height's deep dives into the evolution of the diverse musical communities around our city, and the new show of Rose Gilbert's reporting on our Kurdish community. Now, did NPR have a direct hand in those podcasts? No. But NPR taught us and held our hand to pull us up to the point that we could be the station that produces those things on our own. And it continues to be a supportive, opportunity-making organization for WPLN and other stations like us. Now, if you look closely at our station, you'll see clear signs that we are moving forward with confidence right now. The inimitable Blake Farmer has come back home to Nashville Public Radio to host This Is Nashville. Our CEO, Steve Swenson, is retiring, but today our staff gets the chance to meet our new top executive for the first time, and she's an exciting hire. Holly Kernan is coming to us after working at one of the leading stations in the public radio ecosphere, KQED. We have no plans to back down from a path of excellence. We do, however, need listeners to continue to speak up and advocate for what we do and for the national systems that make this work possible. So once again, I'm asking you to go to protectmypublicmedia.org to read about the current congressional actions and how you can tell our senators and representatives that this kind of local news matters and that NPR matters. Again, that website is protectmypublicmedia.org. And thank you. In just a few minutes, the annual bike ride by members of the Cherokee Nation that urges us all to remember the removal. That's coming up after the newscast.
At WPLN, we tell stories about honoring our families.
If he become a monk, that means that mom and dad will go to heaven when they pass away.
And preserving memories.
I never heard of a Rosenwald school. Nobody never told me that's where I went.
I'm Char Daston, and my reporting connects you with your neighbors and the important moments in their lives.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Large and peaceful. That was Nashville's version of the No Kings protest against President Trump. Thousands took part at Bicentennial Mall before dispersing to Jefferson Street and Rosa Parks Boulevard, holding signs and chanting. Democracy! Now! Democracy! The protest was part of a nationwide response to the Trump administration's large-scale military parade in Washington, D.C. Some 2,000 No Kings rallies were held across the country. Many Nashville protesters, like Sarah Striegel, said they were particularly motivated to show up after recent ICE arrests.
Seeing the way that ICE is being used to oppress our immigrants and the way that it's not safe to be a person of color, as a brown woman and a child of immigrants, it's terrifying to think that, that the rule of law is no longer in place.
A small group of counter-protesters was present, with some wearing a symbol associated with the far-right extremist group. One arrest was made of a counter-protesters who attendees said was brandishing a firearm. The judge presiding over a federal case against 5 former Memphis police officers has recused himself from further proceedings just days before sentencing. U.S. District Judge Mark S. Norris did not explain why he wouldn't continue on in the case of the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols. Several motions had been filed under seal in recent days. 4 of the 5 convicted officers are scheduled to be sentenced this week and the 5th later this month. The officers were part of a team called the Scorpion Unit that was disbanded soon after Nichols died. A Justice Department investigation then determined the Memphis Police Department was using excessive force and discriminating against black people. There's a chance that some academic programs at Tennessee State University will have to be dropped amid federal cutbacks. The university's Board of Trustees met Friday to discuss how to confront a major financial setback. The university faces a $90 million deficit and may run out of cash. Trustees are also blaming low enrollment numbers and inefficiencies in financial aid, adding to the setback. Members will revisit their options later, saying that the information provided has not been clear enough for them to make a decision. Interim President Dwayne Tucker says he's talking with the state about redirecting funds. In the meantime, TSU will raise tuition by 6%. A law going into effect at the end of the month in Kentucky will have an impact on freestanding birth centers in that state and in Tennessee. The new rules create an easier path for midwives to open such centers in Kentucky. The law is intended to give people more options for labor and delivery. But the legislation is several years in the making. The slow progress prompted some providers, like midwife Jenny Fardink, to go ahead and open a clinic on the Tennessee side of the state line in Clarksville.
We were hoping the last 2 years that it was going to pass in Kentucky, and then we would have opened in Kentucky, which we think would have brought revenue to Kentucky, more workers to Kentucky.
She estimates half of her customers cross the state line for care. Regulations in Kentucky will be finalized by the end of the year. An alternative to Mayor Freddie O'Connell's budget proposal has been filed with Nashville's Metro Council. Delicia Porterfield, the council's budget chair, filed her substitute, maintaining the same overall price tag as the proposal put forward by the mayor last month, $3.8 billion. It also maintains the same property tax rate. However, it diverges where some of those dollars will go. Porterfield's substitute redirects more money towards things such as pay increases for Metro employees, maternal health programming, and after-school programming. The council will consider the substitute tomorrow. At the meeting, other council members may suggest amendments to Porterfield's proposal or even introduce their own budget entirely. But the council only has until the end of the month to reach an agreement. If they don't, the mayor's proposal will take effect. Nashville's main downtown library is facing an extended closure after major damage to an adjacent garage. The main library will be closed through July 7th. Books and materials that were on hold are being sent to the Linebaugh branch in North Nashville for pickup, and the library is encouraging people to make upcoming returns at other branches. Nashville police have recently recovered the remains of 2 missing women in separate cases. The department identified 29-year-old Taylor Powell as the person who was last seen in the Cumberland River near downtown. She struck a docked barge and went under. Her body was recovered in the river in Cheatham County. A previously unsolved missing persons case has also reached a conclusion. Police say the woman whose remains were found in dense woods in the Bordeaux area in January were those of 85-year-old Lucy Buchanan. She was a frequent fixture, walking to stores in the area, and was known to have dementia. She was reported missing in November 2021, prompting a review of security camera footage. The mayor of Alexandria, Tennessee, has resigned following recent criminal charges. Documents indicate Beth Tripp approached the local police chief on back-to-back days to ask that a speeding ticket be dropped. News Channel 5 reports the small town in DeKalb County has had a chaotic year. All 3 of the town's police officers resigned last summer over differences with the mayor, and residents have been raising concerns about town finances and brown water flowing from faucets. Right behind the railroad tracks in downtown Dixon sits the Hotel Halbrook, the birthplace of Governor Frank G. Clement. He was beloved by most and served 3 non-consecutive terms during the 1950s and 60s. According to his son Bob, his father used his time in office to focus on big-picture policies to benefit the population at large.
He established the first Department of Mental Health in Tennessee. He established the free textbook program for every public school kid. The community colleges was founded by my father, and he moved the state from a manufacturing industrial to a service information society. So he laid a solid foundation.
You can hear the full interview with former Congressman Bob Clement to learn more about his father's time in office, as well as his own political journey, today at noon on This is Nashville. One of the worst-case scenarios abruptly ended this year's Bonnaroo Music Festival as heavy rains prompted organizers to cancel more than 2 days' worth of music. The official word came down Friday as accumulating water took a toll on camping conditions and raised safety concerns. This is the first time Bonnaroo was shut down mid-festival. There were 2 other cancellations for COVID in 2020 and because of flooding in 2021. Attendees will be entitled to refunds. Nashville music fans did see one benefit as a number of performers quickly pivoted to makeup shows at city venues. Those included Remy Wolf, Mount Joy, and Natasha Bedingfield at Brooklyn Bowl, EDM trio Levity at the Pinnacle, and Destroy Boys, who played at Cannery Hall. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. For the last 4 decades, a group of bicyclists from the Cherokee Nation have embarked on a nearly 1,000-mile ride from New Echota, Georgia, to Tahlequah, Oklahoma. The ride retraces the northern route of the Trail of Tears in honor of ancestors who were forcibly removed from their homelands. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams caught up with the group on the 5th leg of their journey as they biked through Middle Tennessee.
It's just after 7 a.m. on a muggy morning, but the parking lot of Jolton's First Baptist Church is already buzzing.
Right over left. Down.
18 riders, plus support staff, are busy stretching, spraying on sunscreen, braiding hair, and checking bike tires and chains. Once everything is in order, the group, clad in matching red and white kits that read "Never Forget," form a circle and begin to pray.
Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day.
The group is coming off a difficult day, long miles, and a visit to a mass Cherokee grave in McMinnville.
Now we carry them with us. Now they are with us as a final resting place, and just a little peace of mind to know that their people have found them today.
Stops at historical sites are a significant part of the Remember the Removal ride, because according to the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr., the ride is really about reclaiming the darkest time in Cherokee history.
There, in some instances, have been a whitewashing and almost romanticizing of that period of history in which there's a gentleness to the story.
Things look different today than when the first ride took place back in 1984. Bikes are nicer, riders have more support when it comes to food and lodging, and Hoskin says the cultural element is more important than ever.
I think it perhaps takes on a sense of urgency today that has increased over time, and that relates to the continued erosion of our language, culture, and lifeways.
Training for the ride isn't merely physical. It also incorporates history lessons and language learning.
Sianagad, Bailey Greg Dawado, Jusanuha Nidigilosa, Toscosawu Iyawadetiad.
For first-time rider Bailey Gregg, a student at Oklahoma State, learning about her own history has been one of the best parts. During training, the riders have their genealogies traced.
Mine goes back 10 generations. I think some others go back like 12 almost.
Gregg says she's been able to share findings about her matrilineal clan with her family.
I actually found out that I still have a clan, so I'm Blue Clan. And that was really interesting because my grandma didn't really remember that.
Yet the emotions have also taken a toll, like a visit to Blythe Ferry in Meigs County. That was the last place along the Trail of Tears that Cherokees were able to see their homelands.
So as we were going across on the boat, we all just looked back and were reflecting, being can you imagine this being the last time you see your home, and you don't know when you could ever go back, if you can even go back ever. And so it was just a very emotional day. We all cried, but I think it brought us all together.
The group is about a week away from reaching the finish line of Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Until then, they continue to start every morning the same, joining hands, praying, and calling out a war cry. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And as I said earlier, you can speak up on behalf of WPLN and NPR at protectmypublicmedia.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. and we'll catch back up tomorrow.